to do this year. Not a whole lot. It was a very low key kind of setup that we had going on this year, right? Not even a lot of family things going on. So just easy peasy Christmas thing to be ready for. And we're not even really going anywhere except my aunt's house, and that's going to be low key. So that's it. Not much to prepare for. What about you guys?
It's going to be low key.
Oh, I see what you did there. And you're right, because literally we're going to my aunt's house to just watch Loki. That's all we're doing. We're not even going to celebrate a holiday of any kind.
Right.
All right. What about you guys?
Christmas shopping was a lot. Had to get a lot of siblings and had to get a lot of, parents' gifts and what have you. So it was quite the shopping experience. But this year my theme was like, just go with what works. Don't put too much thought into it. Just if it looks good, just go with it. And so, because this year's been chaotically busy for me. So, but a different type of busy. Normally I'm busy and just crazy busy. But this time I'm busy, but with purpose. So lots of crazy things going on at work. But so it left me very little time to do Christmas shopping. But like I said, my theme was, hey, I'm going to look at this and just be like, hey, this works. I'm not going to think too much on it and just go with it.
So when you say busy with purpose, does that mean like other years you've been busy and it's been kind of a chaotic thing, whereas this year you're busy, but you're in control?
You know what? You could not have more aptly put that together and like stated it that way. So yeah, that's 100% what's going on.
I like that, man. I'm glad to hear that too. That's awesome.
Thank you. So here we are.
Welcome to Infinity Rewatch. I'm Andrew Fantasia, and I'm wearing blue because this is a DC show, and that's the color of DC, right? That's where we're talking about our 5 favorite members of the Green Lantern Corps. Is that what's happening, or did I cross some wires?
You have literally laid down the most blasphemy. No, it's just, I mean, one day, you never know. We might do now with Mr. Gunn over on the DC side. When the DC universe kicks off, maybe we'll have a DCU rewatch.
And who are you? I don't know your name yet because you haven't said it out loud.
That's true. I tend to reserve my name because people know what it is and call it out loud. Like my beautiful wife. Yes, love. So there you go. So she can, will do. All right. So there we go. All right. So you now know my name, which is Ryan J. Marvel. And we're here for some Infinity Rewatch action.
We sure are. And it's not just an Infinity Rewatch. It's our holiday Infinity Rewatch, our holiday special of the year. And I wanted to take note because last time, do you remember how we talked, Ryan, about how I had never kept track of how many episodes we'd done, and then I wanted to start doing so, right?
Correct.
So I've started to do that, and I'm trying to find where here it is. So what you're listening to and or watching right now, just so everybody is clear, is episode 107 of Infinity Rewatch, which is our 2023 holiday special. I accidentally put 2024 in the description because I'm a dum-dum, but it's not 2024 yet, unless you're listening to this in the future, in which case you're on the spot. You're more on the spot than I am. You're listening to it at the time that it says to listen to it.
There you go.
And we have a cool feature plan for our holiday special that Ryan thought up of. But before we get to it, I want to bring up just a small news thing that has come up lately that I wanted to share because it's made me excited. And that is in regards to the Agatha television show. Okay. So, Ryan, this thing has had more names than our mutual friend Coasty. Okay. This show has gone through so many name changes. We knew a guy who went through a bunch, but this show just took the crown from him. It started off being called Agatha Agatha House of Harkness.
Yeah.
That was the first name.
That's right.
And then at some point they went, scratch that. It's now called Agatha Coven of Chaos, which I don't know about you, but I thought is a cooler name than House of Harkness.
Yeah.
Then about a month or two ago, they said, nope, we lied. it's actually going to be called Agatha Darkhold Diaries. And now, about a week or two ago, maybe even less, they once again smiled at us, shook their heads, and said, that is wrong. The show is now called Agatha All Along. Ryan, what are your opinion on these 4 different names?
I'm a bit confused. Honestly, actually, to be fair, I've been a little out of the loop. I have not been able to keep my finger on the pulse of Marvel lately, so I'm a little. I've caught up some more recent news, but speaking to Agatha's series names. I know you did a video on your YouTube channel a long time ago where you talked about the naming conventions of movies and how you're a fan of the numbers.
Yes, I am.
But I'm a fan of like clever names, and I always reference how for example, when they did the Solo movie, they just called it Solo. And I'm just like, with the plot line, I'm like, you should just call it Solo, the Kessel Run or something like that, right? Something that like indicates where the story is going, because that's what it was all about, apparently. So I really like the Coven of Chaos. I like the double alliteration too that they kind of did with the subtitle there. Agatha House of Harkness didn't stand out in my opinion. It was kind of like It's kind of like you just named it for naming its sake. But Coven of Chaos sounds like it had some thought to it, and like, all right, we're gonna really get into some stuff. But yeah, they kept changing it, and now and Darkhold Diaries just is like, sounds like Vampire Diaries, and I'm just not for that at all. But landing on what they did, which is Agatha and sorry, what is it called again? It's the
Agatha All Along.
Agatha All Along. It just seems so. It seems so lackluster. Like it's because that was the name of her clever theme song, and like the whole thing. But like it harkens back to my why is the rum gone joke. Like it's funny the first time, but then it starts to play on a bit too much. So now they're naming the entire series off of a little like hilarious moment, and it's like the why is the rum gone joke. That's what it feels like. So I wish they just kept the Coven of Chaos. I think that really encapsulates the whole thing. But to be fair to Marvel, I don't want to just pure critique here without giving them some credit in the sense of like they know what story they're telling. So if the title of it's Agatha All Along, then hopefully the story plays to that subtitle. Like if you're gonna name it that, there better be a darn good reason within that story that's going to connect everything all together.
Yeah, I hope that happens. So you would say Coven of Chaos is your favorite of those 4?
Oh, 100% Coven of Chaos. Yeah, absolutely. Just it sounds like a Marvel show. You know what I mean? Like it sounds like a comic book you pick up off the ground kind of thing. Like, all right, let's see where this is going.
Yeah, I really liked Coven of Chaos, and I was digging it when they changed it to Coven of Chaos. When the Darkhold Diaries name came out, I was kind of in the same boat as you. I was like, man, that sounds like a Disney Channel sitcom.
Yeah.
Like, Dear Diary, being a witch in grade 9 is so uncool. Like, I that's what it sounded like to me. And I'm like, no, thank you. But I got to admit, I really like Agatha All Along as a title, especially if, like you just said, especially if they use it, especially if it's not just there to be clever, but it's there where in hindsight, once we've seen the whole show, we can look back and be like, oh, damn, that's why they called it Agatha All Along. That's just a great little cherry on top of the sundae. So I hope that's what they're going for. I think it has the same people behind it as WandaVision, so we know it's going to be a smart show.
Yes.
So I think that we're in good hands with that, and we might end up having that very same thing happen where we might look and say, wow, that's why they called it Agatha All Along. So I dig this title change. I hope it's the final one. That show was supposed to come out this coming Halloween, so we'll see what happens with that. And breaking news, this just in, actually, Kevin Feige announces next Marvel movie, Shang-Chi, Why is the Rum Gone? So you're onto something there, my friend.
Oh man, there was a fraction of a second I was following you on that. I was like, oh my God, they announced Shang-Chi, and yeah.
Yeah, that'll be next year. He wants to figure out where all the rum went. And that's the whole story. He's tracking it down. Him and his
terrible.
little.
It's just like why is the run gone? Like, you know, make me laugh once, great. Make me laugh twice, ho. You know, joke's on me. Make me laugh 3 times, joke's on you.
Is there a running joke in pop culture that you can think of that you do? Like you're like, oh, I love that they kept that joke going. Like it kept being funny.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, but if it comes to me, I'll let you know. But I can't think of anything at this particular moment.
What about like one that stands out to me that always makes me laugh is Jazz getting thrown out of the house in Fresh Prince. Even though you can always see it coming, like I can't wait to see this guy get thrown out of the house.
Yeah, that's pretty good. You know what? Actually, I'll give you one that plays to your home. The Homer doing the white little, like
yeah,
that was good. Actually, and it's funny too. Small hilarious note there is there's a band, remind me to tell you a little bit later, called Dankmas. I don't know if you've heard about them. Dankmas. But they take Simpsons Sounds clips and make dance music out of it.
Oh my God. Wow.
It's a thing, and it's if listeners, if you're a Simpsons fan, you need to, even if you watch Simpsons in the past, you need to listen to it. It's really funny.
So it's like they give Simpsons the treatment of they're taking the Hobbits to Isengard, like that. Essentially, they make like a, oh wow.
There's one where Ned talks about his beatnik parents, and it's really good. It's so funny. It's literally, if you wanted club music, if ever a club wanted to bring out Andrew Fantasia, that's what they would play. That's 100% what they would play. It's so freaking good.
I'm keeping that in mind. If I ever become a boxer, I'm gonna be like, listen, when I enter the arena, just play something from Dankmas. Okay. And they'll be like, sir, why are you boxing? You weigh like 140 pounds. Just stop. You're gonna die tonight. I'm like, no, put me out there. I'm ready.
Well, like the one song is just like, with the beatnik parents, it's like it goes it's like telling what's his name to go boom boom ba ba ba, right? And then, but the whole song is boom boom ba 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 boom, boom. Good times.
I hope The Simpsons lives forever. I really hope it does. They actually just celebrated their 750th episode, Ryan, as well as the anniversary. I think the anniversary of when they started was like 2 days ago, because they started with the Christmas episode.
At this point, 100% at this point, 750. I would just say at 1,000, just stop. You gotta stop. As much as I'd like them to go on forever, 1,000 is a good round number, and you might as well just hang your hat and say, you know what, we're enough. We did it. We went out and did this thing, and it was great. We had a good time. We can hang our hats proudly.
If they can make it to 1,000, I agree, man, 100%. Let that be the capstone to the greatest legacy of television. Just let it end there.
Yeah.
They do about roughly 23 episodes per season. So in order for them to get to 1,000, who's good at math? Not me. Let's see.
Not it.
Calculator time. All right. 1,000. No, so they need 250 episodes left to get to 1,000.
Right.
Okay. So 250 divided by, let's say, 23 is 10.8. So they need to be on for about 11 more years before they can reach 1,000.
Wow.
I don't know if the actors have it in them, man. They're getting old.
I will be 2 years away from 50 if they get to 1,000 episodes. Oh my God, I'm old.
And the crazy thing is that unlike the characters we're about to talk about, The Simpsons has gone 750 episodes without a whole lot of character arcs and character growth. They just let it ride, old-fashioned sitcom style.
Yep.
Right?
Crazy world we live in. But you know what? Like, the same can be made about the MCU. People are like, man, I'm getting tired of the MCU now. They've done a whole saga, and now we got a whole nother saga. And here we are, and people are getting. I'm like legit feeling the air. I'm feeling the air, and I'm like I can feel people just like starting to be like, you know what, had a good ride, it's been fun. This needs to stop. But I'm like, no, this could go. I want them to at least get to Secret Wars and finish it there, and then you can take a healthy break. But as long as you can get to, but don't stop. Just take a healthy break. You've done great. Take a moment to collect yourselves, and let's go from there.
In my perfect world, in the same way that I would love Simpsons to get to 1,000, I would love 3 sagas and then wrap it up.
3's a good number. It's
right?
good. It's good holy number. It's like 3. You did it. 1, 2, 3. That's
it. And every saga has had 3 phases anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So end with phase 9, end with whatever that is, Mutant Saga or whatever. But excuse me, put a cap on it right there.
That's it. We had a good run. Thank you.
There's a reason why, even though Toy Story 4 is fine, they should have stopped after 3. Right?
But see, okay. I have one little like stipulation with that. Okay.
Yes.
If you're gonna do a fourth, or like, because obviously you're gonna try for like another trilogy, but if you're gonna do 4 has got to be like kind of how do I phrase this? Like, for example, you do Halo 1, 2, and 3, right? Mm-hmm. Then you should call the 4th one Halo Infinite, and just leave it as like the aftermath of the world, and and leave it in the realm of like talk up some things that may have been not wrapped up, and then kind of leave it as like the realm of possibilities, right? And just leave it at that.
Okay.
And leave it as like an ongoing thing, right?
Okay. See, I'm in the opposite camp. I think if you're gonna do, and now granted, I'm about to talk out of my ass here because I've never played Halo, so I don't know the story. But I'm gonna piggyback on your example. If you make 3 Halo movies and you make a 4th Halo movie, in my opinion, because you used the popularity of Halo and piggybacked on that, you owe it to yourself to call it Halo 4 and make it worthy of standing with the first 3, right? You make it feel like part of the puzzle. That's why I hate the title they used for the new Beverly Hills Cop 4 that's coming out next year. That title is just, it seems like a title somebody would use on The Simpsons if they're making fun of movies with bad titles.
I mean, I hear you. Don't get me wrong. I hear you. But like, Star Wars is another good example. Let's say, you had only 4, 5, and 6, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say that was it. That was the only Star Wars you got. Then you had a subgenre of stories that kind of like is the aftermath of Star Wars. And the best way to tell that story and kind of like leave it as a 4th film is the Dark Forces games, right? With Kyle Katarn. Mm-hmm. Because it's all about the aftermath through this one character. And it kind of leaves it as like, yeah, there's Jedis out there, and guess what? You're a Jedi, your parents been killed, and then you kind of tapping into the Jedi world and trying to find your place in that universe. And that's the story of Dark Forces in a nutshell. It's like, that's right. It. And it's perfect, right? And it leaves you with, okay, this is what the world's going to be like with the aftermath of this big, massive trilogy. So that's why I'm kind of on that boat. But it's a hard conversation to really like land on and say like this is the solution. But like I'm in agreement with you that like Toy Story is like 1, 2, and 3 should have left it there. Like 4 was funny and it was fun and it hit in the feels. But could you live without it?
Right. Exactly. And I do like that they called it Toy Story 4. And I think going with what you said, yeah, Dark Forces, that could be, the fact that it's its own thing, totally cool. If they made another movie set in the Toy Story universe, just about a totally different group of toys that belong to some other kid, you can call it Toy Story Dark Forces. That's cool.
Right?
But if you're going to make another movie about Woody and Buzz and Rex and Potato Head and whatever, and call that one Toy Story : Axel F, then we got a problem. Then it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. No,
So-
you could call this like alternatives Toy Story world, like Toy Story and the Island of Misfit Toys, right? Like
Yeah.
something like that, right?
Ooh,
That
that's a
way you know it's
crossover.
like living in the world and you get to see a different lens of it. But at the same time, like you do not touch the trilogy, but you can use the events of the trilogy to influence whatever story you're telling from there on in. That's why I love Ahsoka. That's why I love like a Mandalorian. It's all based on events, but it's expanding. It's expanding the world, but leaving that trilogy the way it was.
Right. Yeah. And expansions are a difference. They can play a little bit more fast and loose. But if you're a direct sequel, use a number 4. That's what it's there for. It's like the Angry Nerd said, and I couldn't put it better. He says, it's like they're embarrassed that they made so many. That's why they stopped using numbers.
That's a great call out. That's a great call out.
So, Ryan, you came up with this great idea for a holiday special today. What are we talking about?
So today we're going to be talking about this is a really interesting subject to me, and we're talking about ranking, in our opinion, what we think are the best story arcs thus far in the MCU. Because if you think about it, especially when you look at the next saga, the multiverse saga, if you will, they really kind of like started off these different arcs left, right, and center. And there's so many shooting out in different directions. Now, what we love about the first one is how full circle each character arc is. But it doesn't mean it's over. It just means the circle is expanding, right? So I wanted to take this opportunity for us to just, not in any particular order, like a top 5, because like I just like saying that, like, hey, these are top ones I think are really cool, and here's why. So unless you did rank them, which that's entirely your way of doing it, bro.
I did rank
for me, the way I see it is like, hey, like let's take a look at what we think are some great story arcs within Marvel right now, and like, you know, maybe even sprinkle in a little bit of like why they're great and why they could be even better.
I love that, and that's such a great idea, and it fits the holiday theme perfectly because it's the end of a year. It's the wrapping up of the 2023 story arc, right?
That's it.
Beautiful. So how about we do it in the classic style where if you and I share a same pick, but then you didn't rank yours, so we might not need to do this. But I was going to say, if let's say you and I both thought Heimdall had one of the 5 best story arcs, if you say Heimdall as like your number 4 and I say him for my number 1, we wait till we get to the number 1 before we talk about it. You know what I mean? We wait till both of us have mentioned him before we talk about it. Does that make sense?
I think so. So we both go through our lists, and then we go, oh, okay, once one of us gets to the same person.
Exactly. So if you say like my number 4 is Heimdall, I'd be like, hold that thought. We'll talk about Heimdall soon.
Okay.
Yeah. I phrased it so wrong. But all right. So why don't you go first, sir?
Oh boy. Okay. Where do I want to start? Where do I want to start? You know what? I'll start with a healthy entry here. This is a healthy entry, but I'll say that I'm going to say Kate Bishop is one of my leading entries in the top.
I love that
character arcs, and the reason, because Kate Bishop is going to, in my opinion, could be the best kind of Rosetta Stone or like anchor to really build out the street level mafia, like the street level heroes, all that stuff, because you know, she is a good bridge from coming from the Avengers to being inspired by Hawkeye, right, into like this new world of like taking on these street level heroes the way she does. Mm-hmm. And I think she's a perfect character for it, to be honest with you. You know, the hero with no powers, you know, meeting all these new heroes that may or may not have powers, like Luke Cage, for example, like, you know, running into Luke Cage, this guy with indestructible skin. That would be a great way to like, you know, introduce characters, but like her like running around recruiting or like learning about the street level heroes who may not get the same recognition as they would with like being on the Avengers. And I also think for her, like the going into the evil side of things, like of course she had direct conflict with Kingpin, which is like that was what we needed in Disney Plus. Like let's introduce these characters, let's really fill them out. And to be fair, I am excited about Echo, because Echo is really going to start building out some of the evil side of the MCU in terms of street level. But she's coming from like a Punisher anti-hero approach. So the reason why I didn't rank her in my top story arcs is because I think she's more full, like she's going to have a more closed loop story by having just really Daredevil and Kingpin and her, and having that rotation. But like it's more about her getting revenge on Kingpin, but you're not gonna, because revenge stories are very tunnel vision, and Daredevil may interject, but it's still like she's not gonna broaden the perspective. She's gonna narrow it by keeping it focused on her relationship with Kingpin, and then on top of that, like trying to get revenge and sort everything out, right? Whereas Kate Bishop being this hero and new hero, she's going to obviously, you know, she can't just run down Kingpin. She's going to have to run down different groups. She's going to have to run into different people. And on top of that, Kingpin may send like, you know, hired villains that will have the quirks, like Shocker, for example. She might bring back Shocker. She might, you know, bring in Scorpion. You never know. Like you
finally.
What?
Finally.
Right? Like we need to use him. We've seen him. We know he exists in Spider-Man 1, but like why aren't we bringing him in? And I think Kate Bishop's perfect for it. And she can even weave in with Spider-Man. Like it's just I really am excited about her story arc because of like her like, and it's a cheesy moment, but it's a moment that speaks to a lot of us that have read comic books and stuff. Is like, you know, when she sees Hawkeye, just this like literally archer falling off the building and fighting the alien invasion, that really inspires her. And that inspiration could lead to her being this like superhero. But like the exposure she can get in the street level could be just so cool. And like you could do weird one-offs, you know what I mean? Like there's so many characters in the Marvel universe you could do weird one-offs with. Like you could bring in Night Thrasher, you know, for example.
Yeah.
Like random characters that we know from the comics, and you can find ways to like tie her story and have these like kind of one-off Marvel team up adventures through each episode. So that's why, like for me as an entry, I think it's a good top story arc to really kind of kick things off.
It is. It's a great choice, man. And she has the little like the cool additional twist of she had that moment of seeing Hawkeye during the Battle of New York, and now she always has that as a trump card, where whenever things get hard for the Young Avengers or Avengers 2.0 or whatever they're going to call themselves, whenever things get really hard and dire, guaranteed she's going to be the one to step up and be like, listen, everybody, Clint Barton helped save New York with nothing to his name but a bow and arrow. And you guys have magic and an Ironheart suit, and you have this and Gamma and that. Like, we're going to be okay. She's going to be the one to make that speech, guaranteed. So that's a beautiful choice. I love that. Kate Bishop, great.
Thank you.
All right. So I did rank mine from basically my top 5 favorite arcs based on how emotional they made me, just the response of what the character went through in their stories. So with my number 5, I went with our buddy Thor.
Thor. That is a weird start. It's a weird start because of his awkward journey right now. And especially, I'll let you get into it, but I'm just going to preface by stating where he's at right now. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Thor 1 and 2 had some good foundation. There's some solid character moments in there. But 3 was like, shoot him right through the roof, that everyone was like on board. And then every Avengers movie Thor has is like, he's awesome and he's super fun. Then you leave with Thor: Love and Thunder, and you get to things like eternity and all that stuff. But at the same time, you leave the fans with a story that feels like it's kind of half baked and more just a comedy than like an actual propelling the story forward. So, my friend, how does Thor fit into this top story arc here?
For me, it was the ability to just sort of look at it as a whole. And he started in a place where he started as the kind of hero that I can't stand, which is like the egotistical hero who's just too good at everything and too perfect, right? He starts out that way for a reason, because it's like a video game character. You got to start him off with all the goodies, and then after the first boss, he's got to have nothing, and then you got to bring him back up.
I love that. Great
like
reference.
Trevor Belmont or something, right? You get Thor at his peak, and then it's like, nope, you are stripped of your hammer, you are stripped of your power, your title, whatever. Now you're just in the shield camp. There you go. And you're no longer welcome in Asgard. And from that point on, we watch this man who 5 minutes ago was like, how dare you touch the son of Odin? We watch him become a humbled person and have to work his way from the ground up. And through that, we get him sort of reaffirming who he is as a person. Hey!
Bye-bye.
We get him reaffirming his relationships with the people closest to him. So his parents, his brother, his friends, Jane, right? And what they mean to him and what they have contributed to his life. And then in Thor 3, we kind of see what could be described as peak Thor. Like, he's at the peak of his powers. He's really powerful in Thor 3 because he has that moment where he understands, oh no, they took away my hammer again, but I don't even need that because I'm not the god of hammers. But it's not until we get to Infinity War when he sits down and he talks to Rocket and he just basically lays his life on the line in front of Rocket. And that's when me as an audience member and as a participant in the story got to sit back and say, damn, that Thor's had it rough. That is a rough life that he's had. And it put it into perspective, just him having that little monologue of how this guy has lost everything. And when you think of how he started with everything to the point where it made him an unlikable guy, the fact that he lost everything and now he's just figuring his own shit out as we go along, even up until this point in Love and Thunder, he's still at that place where he's like, hey, Guardians, can I go with you? Oh, okay. All right. You're just going to go off without me. Okay. See ya. It makes for such an interesting guy because he's still lost at sea. And you're right in the sense that I think a lot of people agree. Love and Thunder really didn't push it forward as much as we would have liked, especially because to me, the idea of that guy who's lost, what is he like when he has to be a dad? To me, that is a way more interesting story than the story that Love and Thunder gave us. But I feel like you need Love and Thunder to get to that story. So I feel like Thor 4 was a necessary bump in the road to get to what I believe could be a spectacular Thor 5, to really put a cap on this guy and say, like, this is the journey he went through and this is him as a dad, and that's what's going to cement things for him as a character. So I just can't wait to see that part of Thor, and I love the ride we've gone on with him because it's been crazy. It's been all over the place.
Mm-hmm. You know, I see it. You really paint a very good picture for like what could make Thor. You know, like the old Star Wars movie posters. You just painted the best Thor version of what Thor 5 could be like. Like, that's something I'm really excited for now. But yeah, no, there's some really good stuff in there, and I agree with you. You know what? But it's funny though, because Thor has one of the most iconic moments in Infinity War, and that scene with Rocket, where he talks about how he kept losing. Like, he's lost his, he lost Loki, he lost his mom, he's lost Odin, he lost Asgard, he's lost everything. Mm-hmm. But and there was an interesting comment that, you know, that moment got kind of washed away with humor. You know what I mean? But you're right. There's still time to really kind of pick up that momentum and really deliver a solid story about him becoming a dad. And like, you know, like there's a real good kind of like, you know, the world's in rough shape, and like, you know, how do I raise this kid? And like, you know, how do I show them that you can overcome, right? And especially too, because like we saw Hercules, so that's going to be interesting how Hercules is going to play a role in Thor's movie, because we know he's coming. We know he's coming now.
What a perfect story to put Hercules in, because Hercules is arguably, in all of Earth's fiction, he's like the king of having daddy issues. So you put him in a movie where Thor's struggle is being a daddy, right?
Yeah, it plays up to a lot of things. So hopefully, I know there is a Thor 5 in the works. There's already there's a script being built right now. So Chris Hemsworth is still on board, still having a good time, which is great. I think that Thor needs, even if you look at Thor Love and Thunder, and then you still can hit home with Thor 5 and 6 and then call it a day with Thor, at least you can give Thor a good trilogy. Like, if you were to keep Thor Love and Thunder within the next 2 movies and count that as like the trilogy, then Thor will end on a really good trilogy, because coming off of Ragnarok and then having this solid, having a good entry, then next to a better entry and then a best, and hanging up his hammer at that point, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm there. Let's see it. And I know you're directing it. You told me.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm stoked. I would love to direct a Thor movie. I would still even acknowledge and take Taika Waititi's kind of 80s retro futurism kind of tone and feel with Thor, and keep riding that train as far as I can take it. Like, as far as I can take it. Okay, so good entry. I like it. We're off to a very healthy and exciting start.
We sure are.
I am looking forward to seeing how this conversation develops further. Mm-hmm. So my next entry on the list is actually Moon Knight.
Moon Knight.
And I'll tell you why. First of all, for me, Eternals was an okay film. I was happy to see more, what's the word? More critically acclaimed directors take on the, and I mean critically, like this director won an Oscar, and they did a Marvel movie, which is pretty insane. And I was very happy to see that. But in the end, Eternals did not quite hit as hard as we kind of hoped. So, but there was one key character that I really wish they would actually focus on more, leading to the potential of what an Eternal story could be. And that, of course, is the Black Knight, Dane Whitman, right? But to be fair, I don't think he's the story arc I was looking for, because they kept it kind of superficial with him. And though I could say his arc has a lot of potential, it's kind of too vague at this point to say he has a good story arc. Like, I don't have enough to work with to say, oh man, he's like, I have that one scene with Blade, which at first I didn't even know was Blade, but like, I don't even know what to make of that at this point. Like, I don't even know where to go. Right. But I think the cool thing with Moon Knight here is, first of all, Moon Knight's exposure to the mystical world outside of Doctor Strange. And we're talking like Doctor Strange, you can really tap into some weird stuff and get deep into it. But I think with Moon Knight getting into like the dark side of the world, you know what I mean? Like, we're talking like vampires, werewolves, Werewolf by Night. But like, Elsa Bloodstone, I think that Moon Knight's story arc actually really kind of kicks off those stories and can be the Nick Fury of that world. Just because Moon Knight is like the spirit, not the spirit of vengeance, but a spirit, the moon god of vengeance and justice and all that stuff. But I think what's really cool is like, I think Moon Knight could, be that warrior that fights the forces of quite literal evil. Like, we're talking like demons and creatures of the night. And that to me is a really cool arc to build on, right? we got to see this like epic, Egyptian godlike war. But like now, like now the dust is settled. Where's this character going to go from here? Right. And to be fair, why aren't they going like, why aren't they tracking down, creatures of the night where the moon, Khonshu's like, oh, I'm gonna totally just get through this so we can get through it. But like, oh, I detect some, weird creatures in this area. Let's go here, and then have to solve what's going on there.
I think they should take that clip of what you just did and just make that Khonshu from now on.
I sense a bit. But my point is that like I would, the only way I could phrase is like the holy war. You know what I mean? Of like, and like really diving into that, having Mephisto coming in and out, making deals. You know what I mean? Like Dracula, and then having him find Blade. Having him work with Blade, having him work with Ghost Rider. Like really kind of taking us and walking us through that world. And it's perfect too with the multiple personalities. You got Stephen Grant, who's kind of like the innocent, and then you have Jake Lockley, who's like the this the aggressor, the executioner, if you will. And then you have oh my God, Mark. Then you have Mark in the middle of it all, and Mark Spector, who is like the balance of justice, right? Like innocent versus guilty. And yeah, just really getting some weird stuff. And then you could also take it one step further. And this is kind of like my trying to be Kevin Feige brain here, but I would love to see a Moon Knight story that plays up to the Shadowland story of Marvel. And if you haven't heard this story, this is wicked. Daredevil becomes in charge of the Hand, and once he gets in charge of the Hand, he literally like takes justice to its extreme. He's like telling the Hand, if anyone's caught stealing, you kill them. And everyone's like, whoa, like Daredevil, you've gone too far, man. And to a point where like heroes are trying to talk to him, being like, you've gone too far. And he's like, no, this is the way it needs to be. Like it's very much similar to the story of the season 2 of Daredevil, where Punisher's like, you're one bad day from being me. That bad day happens, and he takes justice too far. And what ends up happening is it's starting to affect the crime syndicates, including Kingpin. And Kingpin's like, well, I can't have this anymore. So he sends someone out to grab a scripture that summons Ghost Rider, which is so cool. And so he summons Ghost Rider. There's Echo's part of it. It's a whole thing. And it becomes like this war. And I would love to see Moon Knight kind of take us to that story, and like everyone's involved. Like, I think Blade's in it and all that stuff. So like, let's go there. Let's see what let's see where that goes. But yeah, the Holy War, I think, is the best way to describe it. Is like having demons start invading Earth from like a different angle that Doctor Strange, needs. Like Doctor Strange could be like the ultimate last hero they recruit, but like the Holy War being fought on Earth on a physical and mystical level, I think Moon Knight can take us there. And I think you can really open up characters like the Night Stalkers and the Midnight Suns.
Right. I like the sound of that story. Is there a point where the people try to talk sense into Daredevil and he goes, talk to the Hand?
Yeah, I wish.
See, they need to give Daredevil a sense of humor. Everything I've seen him in, he's always just like a stick in the mud.
Yeah. But like, I want to wrap too. Like, think of Werewolf by Night, but on a larger scale. Yeah, and Moon Knight leads us through it.
That would be so much fun. Mm-hmm. Moon Knight actually was my honorable mention. He just didn't make my list. I loved his character arc so much. I loved the ride they took us on of getting to know Mark and getting to know Steven and why Steven exists, and the whole thing with the mother, and it was so heartbreaking. And I think the reason it didn't make the cut was because this is just a personal me thing. I find story arcs and character arcs more rewarding the longer it takes to go through them. and it was so self-contained just to that show, whereas all the other characters on my list have been going throughout much longer, more projects than just one thing. So we really got time to sit with them. So it got more emotional when we got to the end point of it. But yeah, Mark Spector just missed making the cut. But yeah, I love that story. That's a good pick. And you're right, Moon Knight can open a lot of doors for some supernatural stuff down the line too. Beautiful. All right, who is my number 4? Oh, okay, it's that person. All right. Sorry, yeah. My number 4 favorite story arc that we've seen a character go through is Iron Man. Do you have Iron Man on your list somewhere? Should we wait? No? Okay. Iron Man it is. We're going to talk about Mr. Stark.
If I had an honorable mention, it would have been Iron Man.
Yeah.
It really would have. But yeah.
I think it's, and there's not even much to say about this. It's the simplicity of the story that I think I love so much. And the only thing, it was very close between him and Thor for number 5. And the only reason I put him above Thor is really because we've seen the end of it, whereas Thor is still open-ended. Because truth being told, I actually prefer Thor's character more than I prefer Tony's character. And that's just because Thor really feels more like, when we meet him, he's an asshole, but he stopped being that asshole. And he just started being this totally different guy, whatever. Whereas with Tony Stark, I feel like when we meet him, he's an asshole. And then he doesn't stop being an asshole. He just stops being a greedy guy. And he starts being a hero, but he's still just kind of a jerk and he's insulting everybody and whatever, right? So Tony had a similar arc. He just went about it differently, which as a storyteller, I love, because it goes to show how many different flavors of people there can be and how many different ways we can tell different people's stories. But he goes through the whole process of, I'm a warmonger, I sell weapons to people, I have no responsibility, and I get everything I want, I have everything in the world. And then it's like, oh no, you got to lose everything, my friend, because clearly you don't appreciate what you have. And now he's going to start appreciating it and start doing the right thing and say, I'm not making weapons, I'm going to be a good person and I'm going to save the world, whatever. And that stayed consistent throughout. Like I said, it didn't go through as many changes as Thor did. He stayed pretty constant. But I like it more because we got to see the culmination of that. We got to see where that story ends. And I'm a big believer in, and I know as comics fans, a lot of our listeners are going to hate this, but I believe stories need to end. And they're good. They can be good, but they can only be great if they end. Mm-hmm. So Iron Man's ending gave us a great arc because it showed us the beginning, middle, end of this guy's journey and all the lives he touched. And I think it's very telling to me. I was thinking about the funeral scene in Endgame, and I thought how beautifully telling it is that there's this guy who, he didn't have a secret identity. The whole world knew he was Iron Man, and the whole world, like, he was a very public figure. Everybody knows his name. Everybody recognizes his face, and they go, hey, that's Iron Man. That's that superhero. But at the end of the day, his funeral is not broadcast on TV. His funeral is not this big, giant event where the world is like, look, Tony Stark is dead. Look at this. Look at this. It's literally the small things, the small lives he's touched. This 24 people in this cabin by a lake. And that is so different from what Tony Stark started out as, that shows me how the priorities changed in this man's life. And it's like, okay, that's why we needed the story to end, because we needed to show that now at the end of his life, he has what matters. He has Morgan, he has Pepper, and he has these friends in this quiet little forest, and nobody else in the world knows he's dead. And it's just, right now, it's just about them, because that's what's important. Mm-hmm. And then, the icing on the cake is Tony Stark's proof that he has a heart, and that the greatest stories should all call back to the beginning, no matter how long it's been. So
Yeah.
from the first movie to Endgame, you have that little arc reactor to show us that yes, you have been on this same journey the whole time, and here's your reward for sticking through it.
I love it. I mean, Iron Man is such a mantle for Marvel. It is such a mantle. Like it is, because you have to understand, like the MCU, like, I know I think when Robert Downey first said it, I was like, bro, you help put him on the map, but you're not like the driving force. But to be fair, and taking away ego and just objectively looking at it, if it wasn't for Iron Man, we would not have MCU, period. Like you have to give him that credit. And the truth is yes, it's a story that works from a comic book standpoint, because it's one of the characters whose tech influences a lot of things, and not only heroes but also villains, like AIM. Like they could have really leveled up AIM in the MCU, as opposed to giving us this Aldrich Killian storyline. But like, yeah, like AIM, and having other just other people using his tech, or Doom playing like even Doom, like he could play up like Doom. He always accuses Doom of using his tech in the cartoon kind of thing, but like, there's a good story there. But yes, there are characters who are deeply influenced by Iron Man. It would have been nice to see for sure. Like the cartoon again, and I'm a big advocate of, like, if the cartoon does it right and if the movie doesn't succeed the cartoon, then you're doing something wrong.
Right.
And the cartoon, like, Iron Man has his own kind of mini Avengers. He has characters that you don't really know very well, but
yeah, Force Works, man. I love Force Works.
Yeah. So, but my point is, yes, that again, that's definitely an epic story arc for sure.
Yeah, it's great. Fun fact about Force Works: one of the characters in it visually inspired one of the characters in We Were Wizards.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes.
All right. All right. Interesting. Well, more motivation to get through them books.
Yeah, I want your opinion on them, buddy. Get cracking. So we can start a We Were Wizards podcast.
All right. Well, that sounds good. That's even more motivation for me to finish it. So definitely we'll have to get on that.
We got Meeple Monkey in the chat. Hello, Meeple Monkey.
Hello,
Merry
Meeple
Christmas
Monkey.
to you. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for creating that Marvel Unlimited series there, where I tried to take part in the contest. I didn't win, but that's okay. I can live with that. It was my chance to catch up, but I guess I never will. Anyways, make great content. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right. So next in our Marvel world, who do I want to mention next that I want to play on my list? Let's see. I think I'm gonna do an obvious choice.
Annihilus. Okay. All right. Let's talk about Leslie Bibb.
I have to say it's kind of like a double header kind of thing, but it's important. Okay. So it's two people, but they share a similar story, and it honestly comes out of the Marvels, which is surprising for a lot of people.
Cool.
But Miss Marvel and Spectrum are really the key characters to look out for in story arcs. One is because, and again, spoilers, I'm going to warn you now, in case you haven't seen, which if you're a Marvel fan at this point, you would have seen the movie at least twice by now. But I'm going once, going twice. Okay. And that is because she represents two worlds that they can now very easily do correctly. And that is, one is she's obviously, when you look at Spectrum, she's connecting the world of X-Men. But you look at Miss Marvel, and she can not only take that world, but she can also tie in the Inhumans. And the Inhumans would be so cool to do right now, especially
exactly.
Exactly right. So, but so cool to execute right, because the Inhumans have great stories, and so do obviously the X-Men. But like my point is like these two characters have a brilliant story arc now that they're really it's really taken some elbow grease to really weave them together. But I do think they have something solid here to go on, and I'll tell you why. Because the Inhuman story is like a kingdom. Like this is a kingdom, right?
Mhm.
That shares and occupies Earth essentially. But with the connection of the X-Men, you can really get into cool other kingdoms that exist in the world of Marvel, like the Shi'ar Empire, right? We talked about the Kree, we've talked about the Skrull, we've talked about we've talked about Atlantis, right? Like we have we have Namor now in Black Panther 2, which is a fantastic movie. But like the Inhumans, like if we're going to talk about a kingdom, we need to talk about the Inhumans and what they represent. And the beauty of the Marvels, and honestly, it's the unsung hero if they do this right. But you also can tie in, so you have Inhumans in one area, in one quadrant, right? You have the X-Men in the other, and then you have so we have from the Inhumans, and then you can also bring in the Shi'ar Empire if you wanted to. But finally, tying it all together, the whole thing is through all this, you can introduce the Fantastic Four, and you can use them to really connect where the Marvels has gone. The Marvels have been like the pioneers, or like the new frontier, if you will. But now the Fantastic Four can be the explorers and bridge it and bring definition, bring clarity to how this is all coming together. And that's really important at this point, because and really critical, because everything is spread out right now. We have spread out the MCU as thin as possible. Like if we're talking a good PB&J sandwich, unless you're allergic, but like we're talking good, we got to make sure that spread is nice and even. And at this point, it is. We have all these characters now. We have all these characters in different levels of existence, telling different stories. But the only people at this point right now that can connect it all is technically the Marvels, but it will be the Fantastic Four, because they are the explorers, right? They're going to be the Star Trek of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, going to different areas and seeing different planes of existence, but more importantly, defining how it's all connected. So that, to me, is such a critical story arc that is worth mentioning. And even Meeple says it right there. Would love to see the Shi'ar Empire. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like, let's get the Dark Phoenix saga told, let's get the Phoenix saga told right. And then because it's the MCU, you can get into the Phoenix Force. And then you can go even more crazy. Like, you can go nuts. But it all starts with the epic story arc of both Spectrum and Miss Marvel, because they are such key characters who have the foundations of everything, like literally everything. And Spectrum's a great example. If you look at WandaVision and the way she kind of starts tying things together, it's so good. It is so good, and I'm so for it. So that is my third entry. It's a real knock in the park, but yeah, it's to me it is fascinating, and especially that end credit sequence. Sign me up.
I love that. I love using Spectrum and Miss Marvel as the jumping off point for a story arc.
Yeah, you start with these two characters, and then you bring it all together to a little heart.
It'll be heart shaped too.
Yeah.
Instead of laying it out in a PowerPoint, Feige will just draw a heart.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, sir. My number 3, my favorite arc that we've seen, is going to be Loki.
Oh, of course. He's had his show is like, honestly, aside from my own subjective loves for certain shows on Disney Plus, Loki's the top one, honestly. Oh my God, it's so good.
Loki has a lot of, he has just been one pleasant surprise after another, right? I don't think any of us walked into Thor 1 thinking Loki was going to be the linchpin that he ended up being. Mm-hmm. We have this character who we just, I don't know about you, but I can only speak for me here. I go into Thor 1 and I think Loki's going to be a generic stock villain with a British accent who casts magic spells, and then Thor beats him up, right? And then, because that's what we were trained to expect back then. We didn't know any better. We didn't know superhero movies could go above and beyond like this. So we get this character Loki, and right away, first Thor movie, he steals our hearts, right? He steals the show and he steals our hearts, and he does it in a way where we are so happy that he doesn't get killed off, even though it looks like he got killed off by falling off the Bifrost. We were so happy with what that guy brought to the table in that movie as a villain. And when we found out he's alive and well and he's going to be the villain of Avengers, huzzah, right? Everybody was like, yeah, I didn't know what to expect for an Avengers villain, but when I heard it was Loki, I was like, hey, that makes sense to me, right? And as time went on, every time we saw him, he just became more and more interesting. And he did some evil things, and he always did that to us. It's the perfect sort of, I've never seen a comic book character's power used so well on the audience, which is, I'm going to fool you into thinking, maybe I'm not as bad as you think, and then I'm going to do something terrible, right? He uses power not only on the heroes he fought, but on the audience, where we thought maybe this time he's telling the truth.
Oh, that's good. That is so good.
Right? And the way his powers works just made it so perfect as a storytelling technique. And we got those moments where we're like, man, I'm really liking this guy. He's so much fun. And oh my God, he just killed Coulson, right? What a bastard. And then again, by the time we get to him having the crap kicked out of him by the Hulk, and he says, you know what, I'll take that drink now. We're like, man, this guy's so charming, even though I just, we saw him try to kill everybody and now he's been beaten. And again, we were so glad he didn't get killed off, because it's like, let's get more Loki. And we just got more and more and more. And we ended up where we end up here with not one, but 2 seasons of this show that really, because of the nature of it being a show, it took the time to focus on this guy and what he's all about. And for me, what clinched it to put him at this point in my list was the moment where he's sitting with Sylvie in a bar in season 2. And he's desperate for her help, because he says, the thing is collapsing, the loom is collapsing, and all the threads are unraveling. And if it does, all my friends are going to disappear. And without my friends, who am I? Right? And that cut me right to the bone. And that's where I was like, that is how you take a character from point A to point Z. Is you show us this guy who, even though he was the villain the first time we met him, we still felt sorry for him, because it was this whole Shakespearean tragedy if he's adopted and whatever, and having to put up with Thor as a brother that would turn anybody into a supervillain, right? So we see him go from that to this, where he's sitting in this bar at the end of his rope, and he's just like, without my friends, I'm nothing. The fact that guy who once said, like, I am a god, bow before me, can be the same one to say, without my friends, I'm nothing.
Yeah.
Like, that's development defined. So I am so happy with how that turned out. And I love how they used him on us as a mischief maker. And it just couldn't have been better handled. Like, from this point on, movies, film, television, cartoons, everybody stop trying to adapt Loki, because as far as I'm concerned, you cannot do better than this.
It's true. You really can't. But what's fascinating about the whole thing is how they've transformed this character. Like, it really takes some brilliant writing to not only unweave a complicated character, and especially from the comics too. Like, Loki's not an easy character to follow. But not only do you take that, but you look at how they can convince a character, right? How they can convince you that this character is just like all these things, like a good person, a bad person, literally making them a person is so good, because what we're so used to, even in like films today, is if they're bad, they're bad. But
Yeah.
what they've done with Loki is that it's not that simple. And it's one thing to go, oh, they're just so misunderstood. And it's like, it's so far beyond that. They've done a great job of making Loki a person. And Loki has these events that define, moments that make them seem bad. But you can also see their noble side in terms of like, the events that take place. So it's good luck trying to recreate something like that, because I don't think you can do it. It's just, they've given this character so much time, breadth, and the right events to create a literal, like a person that you can look at from a whole and see like the bad side, the good side, and everything in between.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. Okay.
We've had no crossovers so far.
No, because we're both. I've been following like the ticks here, and like, I've been following the ticks here, and I gotta say, like, I'm a bit all over we're both looking at it from very different angles. So.
Yes, we're Budapesting it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, oh man, this character has a great story arc, and I think it can go infinitely further. I want to see more Mysterio.
Oh.
I need more Mysterio. I need it. And I'll tell you why. There is no better story arc. None. In fact, it inspired arguably one of the best modern superhero movies to date. And I don't think it can be done. I don't think it can be topped.
You're talking about Morbius, right?
Oh God, how dare you? So I don't think it can be topped. I don't think it can be even done again in hit just as hard. But Spider-Man 3. Okay?
3 or No Way Home?
Sorry. Well, obviously No Way Home.
Okay.
Spider-Man No Way Home. You could not create a movie like that without a villain like Mysterio. What he did, how he did it. I was even watching scenes of it today, and I was like, this movie is so brilliant. This villain is so brilliant. He shifted the perspective of the entire world to make Spider-Man out to be a murderer. It's so good. So good. And imagine what a villain like that can do for other characters. Like, it was one thing for Zemo to make the Avengers like pit themselves against each other, but that was still them versus them. But for Mysterio to go the world versus them, that is so clever. And I want to see more of that. I want to see him playing with characters, challenging characters, making them see things differently. You can do so much with that villain. It is so brilliant. And like, yeah, it's fun to keep it Spider-Man level. I hope he's still alive, and I hope he returns. Like, I hope there's an Empire Strikes Back Spider-Man movie where Mysterio is once again the center villain. But where it could go from here, I have no idea. I don't even know how to fathom where it could go from here, aside from the obvious Sinister Six. But like, I want to see Mysterio. Like, could they do a second Civil War where, or could even Mysterio, like really kind of kick off the war against mutants, right? Like showing off like how mutants can like, you know, just like the first movie where it's like the Senator Kelly is like, you know, we have mutants here who can walk through walls, and you know, who's to stop them from walking through a bank vault, walking through your houses? Like Mysterio taking it to that level. Oh, I'm so for it. Let's go, Mysterio all the way. Mysterio is my hero.
I think it's safe to say that version of Mysterio is dead. We might see multiverse versions of him.
Prove it to me. How is he dead? How is he dead? Tell me. Tell me now.
We can go dig up his grave. I mean,
no.
I know where it is.
But do you? Did he die? How did he die? Do you have a body? No habeas corpus.
Oh, I was there. No, but I mean, I think multiversal Mysterios are very possible. But even if we don't see him again, you're right. It is such a credit to him as a villain that what he did set up the next movie. And even posthumously, he destroyed Spider-Man's life. Like that's huge. I don't think in the 1,254 Spider-Man movies we've had, I don't think we've ever seen a villain affect Peter's life so much as Mysterio did, to the point where like maybe Norman Osborn in Spider-Man 1, only because, you know, it made his son go crazy. But other than that, most of the villains, like they show up, they get defeated, and then in the next movie, that's it. You know, Spider-Man's on to some new problem. But the fact that Mysterio's problem was a 2-movie problem is so flippin' cool. Like that is so admirable. And I agree that's special. That Mysterio is a special villain to begin with, and he needs. Yeah. They couldn't have just made him like another Spider-Man movie. It had to be something special. So the fact that they did that goes to show they understand what a character he is.
Yeah.
And
like
not
like the scene where Spider-Man's in the Netherlands after fighting Mysterio with probably my favorite fight scene in Spider-Man movies of all time. Mm-hmm. But like when he sees Hogan, Happy Hogan, and he's like the fear in his face of just like, is it you?
Right.
Is it you? Prove it to me that it's you. That scene is so critical to prove that, like,
the fact that he can do that to Peter, right? And I will say this, not to sound like some kind of cheap, sleazy salesman here, but if you love stories where the bad guy takes it and makes the world versus the hero, I mean, I'm just saying that is literally what's going on in We Were Wizards, without spoiling too much. So there you go. Great pick, man. I like that a lot.
I had to throw a villain in there. I really did. I looked at my list. I'm like, I need to diversify a little bit.
No, that's a great choice. All right. I'm on my number 2. Number 2 and 1 were tough for me. Again, they flip-flopped a lot. But my number 2, and I feel like this has got to be our first crossover. If it's not, I'll be surprised. It's Captain America. It's not. It is. It is a crossover. Yay!
Yeah, you got me. But I need to hear your answer before I sprinkle in my 2 cents about it.
For me, it comes down to pure emotional catharsis. It's everything I loved about the whole beginning, middle, and end of the Iron Man thing, but they took it even a step further emotionally. Of this guy who just, unlike Tony Stark, he's a very different guy. Steve Rogers kind of got the short end of the stick his whole life. No pun intended. Like he was born a very small, frail guy, and he grew up in a terrible time. And then he gets this lucky break, but immediately it backfires into tragedy, and he loses everything because he's frozen for 80 years. And that can be devastating on anybody. And it's very telling how once we see Steve post being thawed out, there's just a little bit of spark taken out of his eyes from that point on for the rest of the Infinity Saga, because he's just kind of wandering through this world, going through the motions, and he is meeting new people and making new friends. But it's not his world anymore. And I think you and I were born at a time where, not to compare ourselves to Captain America here, because we can't, but we were born at a time where you and I have seen the world change very drastically in our relatively short lifetimes. Neither of us are 40 yet, and we have seen the world go from literally Venus to Mars, right? So I can only imagine what it's like to be in Cap's shoes, but we can kind of empathize a little bit with that feeling of, I've got to just do my best in this world that is not the world I was told it was going to be. And everything is different, and everything is, for lack of a better word, wrong. And I just have to shoulder through it and do the best I can and be the best person I can be, because Dr. Erskine told me at the end of the day, what matters is I have to be a good man, right? And he maintains that. He maintains that all throughout. But he really does not have a happy life. Unlike Tony Stark, who, Tony Stark's been through some things, but he had a pretty good life. He had great things going for himself. Captain America could not say the same. In fact, they turned it into a joke in She-Hulk, but it's true. Like, the guy barely even got laid once in his life. Like, he did not have a pleasant life. It was a life of just hardship and turmoil, and then war, and then nothing, and then war again. Except now this time you're pretty much a property of the U.S. government, and we're going to have you fight all our battles in a world you can't comprehend because it's basically alien to you. And oh yeah, P.S. everybody you've ever known and loved is dead. Bye. So he's just trying to make his best life through all of that, and he doesn't waver from that one little tenet of just be a good person and do the right thing. To the point where it makes him butt heads with his friends in Civil War, because as he tells Tony, when I see a situation pointed south, I'm there every time to fix it. I'm not going to turn my back on it, because that's not what that's not what I believe in. And he always takes the harder path, and he lives this life that is just full of difficulty, but he's always there for everybody else. And very rarely does anybody turn to Steve at any point and say, how are you? Are you all right? I think one of the few people who does is Natasha, because she's an outsider. She lives on the fringe of things. She's very observant. She's probably the only one smart enough to realize this guy is shouldering so much weight for the team. So when she has those little moments where she's like, just checking in, Steve, you good? We can tell that he appreciates it, and that's why they form such a strong friendship. And through it all, he keeps doing what he has to do as a leader, which is not easy. And then finally, we get the beautiful catharsis of, I'm gonna finally go have that dance with Peggy, which to me is, I could not have asked for a more perfect final shot of not just Avengers Endgame, but of the Infinity Saga. Like, I could not have asked for a more perfect bow to wrap up that 10-year-long present they gave us. To me, that is flawless storytelling.
Couldn't agree more. That's why if I had like the ultimate top choice, and that's why I couldn't do a top 5, but if I had the ultimate top choice, of course, I'm going to go with my boy, Captain America. But I look at it through two lenses. One is the story we're given through the movies, and I couldn't agree. I think literally whatever, like all the things you've said and whatever you're thinking with Cap from that lens, I will echo. Like I clearly echo the same things. Like, he's seen the most change, and yet he, like Thor, has literally lost everything he fought for. But the difference is his battle that he fought in, he got to live in his victory. Whereas, most vets, they had to go through the aftermath, go through, all the changes. He literally was taken from the battle and put into the world of, here's the results, as opposed to the aftermath into the results. He literally skipped the entire aftermath into the world as a result of his actions. And you couldn't add, like, in humanity itself, having that direct feedback from your actions, those direct consequences from your actions, that's a lot to process. That's a lot to take in. So how do you absorb that? How do you still remain true to yourself? And that's kind of what's interesting about Civil War, in my opinion, in terms of the story, is that like he still believes in like being good, like Erskine told him, like, be a good man, right? And the right thing to do is the right thing to do. And I remember the polarizing views from comic book fan standpoint of like, was Iron Man right or was Cap right? And you know what, Cap, I stand by Cap. I think he was right. And you know what I mean? Like, he looked as far deep into the story as possible of what's going on with Bucky, that like, yes, he needs to and like he did with taking him to Wakanda, he took him to technically a Wakanda prison, if you look at it, but it's more of like them helping him, but putting him in a cryogenic sleep. But he looked into the story to the point where it's like he knows that most of these things are not his fault. So, excuse me. That's part A of me agreeing with you and saying like that's the MCU side of it. The other side of, in terms of potential, and I wanted to say Captain America as a mantle. I don't want to say just as a character. His mantle has had a story arc, because I now love where Sam Wilson's story is going, which is, the consequences of the pursuit of, the superhuman, right? They look at, you look at the first Captain America movie, and it's to talk about how the serum amplifies whatever's inside of you. And then you fast forward all the way to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and you have a scientist who literally can just amplify people, period. Just amplifies it, but it doesn't physically change their size. It amplifies their abilities, right? Giving them super strength, speed, take your pick, right? But at the same time, but what about the pursuit of the superhuman formula, right? Because there's still one other part of the story that we haven't fully tied into, but we're going to, and that's why it's a top arc for me, is, the pursuit of the serum. And that also includes the Hulk story, because the Hulk story is a result of Captain America's, right? The whole point of the Hulk in this MCU world and MCU story was they were trying to recreate the super soldier serum. Right. And in the end, they created the Abomination, but they've also created the Leader, and they've left those story arcs for now. Brave New World, and which is funny. I almost forgot what the subtitle of that name of the next Captain America movie was. It was New World Order. Now it's Brave New World, right. Which I still love. I think it's a great subtitle for it. But yeah, we're going to see the Leader back, right? And on top of that, we have experiments like oh my God, why am I forgetting his name? Red Guardian. Guardian was another experiment of Russia's attempt at creating super soldier. Like, let's see where this is going, right? A Weapon X. Wolverine himself is a result of the super soldier program. It's another variation of it. They looked into mutant genetics, and they wanted to create the perfect soldier that way. That didn't work out well for Dr. Cornelius, I think his name is. But yeah, that's the other side of what makes this a top story arc for me. Not only for a complete character story for Steve Rogers, but the potential of, the consequences of the events of Captain America. What makes Captain America? That's going to be amazing. And then to have Sam Wilson, take the value of the friendship he had with Steve Rogers and being a good person into a brave new world where you have his now friendship with Bucky, who is carried through with from Steve to Sam, and Bucky's kind of this ambiguous, character in terms of morals, he's got a lot of inner demons that he can't quite figure out. And losing Steve Rogers, he's lost kind of his North Star of being good. So now he has this story with Sam of what it means to be good. And they had a great moment. They have a great moment together in Falcon and Winter Soldier, where Bucky like talks to him. It's like, don't try to be Cap, be yourself. Take what you've learned from Cap, essentially, and like move on with that.
Yeah.
It's not like Cap believed in you, because if you take a step back, Cap, and try to define what he meant by that, is quite simply is that Cap knew that Sam was the next modern Captain America. He's a Captain America for the modern world.
Right.
And that's why he deserves it. He doesn't deserve it because he's filling in the shoes of Captain America. No, he deserves it because he is the modern Captain America. And
Yes.
it's perfect too, because Winter Soldier, Sam brings them into the modern world. And that totally makes Steve go, clearly this is the person to give the shield to.
Well said, buddy. So I think you and I both only have one left.
That's right.
All right. You want to go?
No, it's your turn, because you took my Cap, but
that's right. Yeah, we both
my
had
Cap. So
okay. So right now, this is my number one. And like I said, this and Cap were very close. Like, ask me tomorrow and I might say Cap is my number one. They're just, how it is. But in terms of right now, today, the character arc, the story arc in the MCU that I just could not be happier with is Wanda Maximoff.
Ooh, I kind of, now that you said it, it's kind of like, yeah, I knew he was going to say it.
Yeah, right. This is just, again, talk about, like, in terms of what we said about Loki, talk about a character that you were not expecting to hit you the way it hit you. Before Age of Ultron, all I knew about this character was she had a red and pink costume, Magneto was her dad, and on her trading card, she's going like this. That's it. That's all I knew, right? It's just, what did Marvel Skybox trading cards teach me about this lady? She was in Force Works in the Iron Man cartoon. She was very different, though. She had short hair and the thick Eastern European accent, and she was just like, "Well, Tony, I love you." That it was not a very fleshed out Scarlet Witch, and I don't think she ever mentioned anything about Magneto or whatever. So here we get this version of Scarlet Witch, and Meeple Monkey's going with Korg for his number one. I feel you. Yeah, Korg is fun. With Scarlet Witch, the version that we ended up getting, I had no real expectations except what I knew from that one little trading card. So I just thought, okay, let's see where this takes us. And where it takes us is this kid, because she's pretty much a kid when we meet her. This like weird little goth kid who has had a rough life and got locked up and spent a lot of her life being experimented on. And as we get to know her more, we see that her and her brother are victims of the Avengers, or rather of Tony Stark, as much as any other villain would have been. But the difference is she rises above that and chooses very quickly not to fight these people, but to recognize that they're trying to do the right thing and to help them. Right? So, excuse me. So we get this very intelligent girl who realizes who the good guys and the bad guys are and quickly says, I'm going to help people. I'm going to stop Ultron. But then the second that happens, she loses her brother. Right? Not just her brother, her twin brother. So she's already paying the price of being a hero, and she's a teenager and she's barely started doing it. And as we know from hindsight, it's all just going to get harder and harder for her from here, because she spends the rest of her time being an Avenger, but kind of being still on the sidelines, still not quite feeling like she fits in on the team. And then her powers are so strong that they get out of control and they hurt people, and she feels bad and she doesn't know what to make of that because she's still just so new at this. And she finds comfort in Vision, and they start a thing together, but then oops, he's dead. Thanos killed him. Uh, like another character like Thor who has just been wrung dry by the forces of life and darkness and whatever. And at the end of it, it's so interesting to me because we meet her as somebody she's been hurt so much, she's basically a villain, right? We meet her, she's a villain. She realizes very quickly that's not who I want to be. And we spent a long time with her as a hero. And then the last time we see her, what happens? She's been hurt so bad, she goes right back to being a villain. It's such an interesting, cool arc. And you find yourself putting yourself in her shoes and thinking, how would I react to this? And not just how would I react to this, how would I react to this if I had her powers? Because I'll tell you right now, Ryan, if I could do what she could do, Westview is exactly what would happen. I'm not proud of the fact, but Westview is exactly what would happen. I would build a little fantasy world, a little cocoon around myself, and I'd be like, goodbye world, I'm living here now. And that to me is one of the, I said it when we talked about WandaVision, it's the best depiction of any superhero's power I have ever seen, period. Yeah. Because even though it's so magical and out there and just beyond comprehension, it's so human that she does that thing the way she does it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like having to put yourself in her shoes, there's no way I would ever be able to make a stronger choice than that. I would hide in that same Westview shell. And I think it's been confirmed now that she is dead. At least that version of Wanda is dead. I believe somebody confirmed it. There was a book or something that came out, like a timeline book, that she did in fact die when Mount Wundagore collapsed. So that, to me now, I put her like right next to like Shakespeare characters in terms of just tragic characters, right? Anakin Skywalker's up there too for me. Like just this beautiful tragedy that you watch and you can't help but be like, oh my God, this poor person, right? And it's just such great storytelling because it's proof that not all wonderful, fantastic stories need happy endings to be wonderful, fantastic stories. Sometimes ending on a downer is necessary to tell the most potent story you can. Mm-hmm. And I love that we have ended now on this downer for this character, even though it sucks because, you want her to be happy, but it just goes to show how many different kinds of stories and characters there are to talk about and to see out there. Mm-hmm. And I love that Marvel gave us one like that, and it was brave enough to end it. Even though it wasn't on a happy ending, it was a redemptive one because she realized at the last second, there are versions of me out there who are happy, and I'm not taking that away from them. I thought that was like, I need a Kleenex right now. Like it's making me tear up. I love it.
It's her. WandaVision was one of the biggest surprises of MCU. It's funny because I think it merits the same appreciation for what Iron Man did for the movies as Wanda did for the TV series, because it was truly a unique, different perspective on how you could tell a story about a character. And it's fascinating too, using the medium of Hollywood television for a character who was like used Hollywood television to shape her life, and it's like the most cherished moment. And it's such a beautiful thing, and really the character is just emotional turmoil, like just turmoil. And I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right. I think that character definitely has its story arc worth mentioning. And the other thing too is like they did it with WandaVision, but they could have taken it further and really done like the House of M story where she like does the No More Mutants thing, and in that story, and it's pretty amazing how events unfold from there. If you haven't read the House of M comic, it's a doozy. But it's so good. I think it's Hawkeye Hawkeye's the anchor. Hawkeye, I think it's Hawkeye's the anchor because he dies, and she loved him, but she ended up killing him and then doing like a No More Mutants thing, and it's a whole thing. It's so clever. It's just so clever how they bring everything full circle. But it's a great story, but a great character too. Yes, and yes, if you took a character in in Age of Ultron, you took a character that like nobody knew and just told one of the most emotionally deep stories with. It's great. That's great storytelling.
Yeah. Kudos, Wanda. You rock, girl.
Kudos.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Take us home, sir.
All right. So the last one for me, and I think this is a character who has the potential of really telling a great story, despite some rocky moments here and there, is my boy. And just so happens to be the shirt I'm wearing, Doctor Strange.
Hey,
I love Doctor Strange. I think, I love the hand gestures. But like the character started off with, I think, had a great starting off point, like just a great story. It was a time where origin stories were getting a bit, and they still are. Origin stories are not as fun as they used to be. They're not. And I think it's not even writers' fault today. It's just the exposure to it. I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did a great job of reshaping how to do an origin story, which is you literally start kind of somewhere in the middle. You know what I mean? And then you kind of hit resets here and there. But what I love about Doctor Strange is they did the origin story, but they focus on they literally focus on character growth in the sense of looking at what shapes a character, like not events, not friends, like literally looking at topics of like love, death, attachment, all these things that shape us as human beings. And Doctor Strange challenges the reality of them, and that to me is a really fascinating subject. The first one, he loses his hands, he loses his identity, right? And then he finds how to take his identity above and beyond, right? And that is a cool story to me. Like that, you lose the one skill that you think defines who you are. And it takes so much to realize that this simple thing does not define you. It's your mind, it's what you're willing to do that defines you, kind of thing. And then the second one is like he rebuilds himself. He finally rebuilds himself to a point that he's like, he knows who he is and he's proud of that and he accepts it. And then it becomes the interesting thing is like he now is better, but he still can't get the woman he loves, right? He still can't get that one woman he loves. And the fascinating thing is like he's trying to explore the idea of like, can they be together? And even through What If was, can they be together? And that ends up twisting his mind to a point where like, he's just this like, he ends up losing himself again. Meeple Monkey, thank you.
Thanks,
Glad
Meeple
you
Monkey.
enjoyed it. MU Punisher Christmas rematch inbound.
All right. The Marvel United Christmas special was really fun last year, so he's going to do another one.
Oh, sweet. I'll have to keep an eye out for that one. Love it. I almost didn't understand what MU Punisher meant, but glad you filled me in on the Marvel United. I look forward to checking that out. But yeah, so Doctor Strange, so this concept, so what if the episode of Doctor Strange where he like goes to all sorts of ends to try to save her, and like, cause like if he changes the event that made him Doctor Strange, could he be with her? And the answer is no. Multiverse of Madness. He gets there and realizes that it could never work with her. And he finally has a battle with himself, which is really cool. And then, so now he knows that you cannot, you cannot live with that. You cannot hold on to an attachment. You cannot. You got to let go of attachments. It's a very Eastern philosophy thing. So what's next, right? That's what begs my curiosity, or like begs me to like keep following through with this. Is like, what's next for him? Like, what? Like, I think it's like almost the battle of like the meaning of life itself. Like, what is it, right? And what's really cool about Doctor Strange is he literally fights characters that are like death itself, eternity. Like he does fight eternity, and he ends up like surpassing. He almost gets to a point of immortality, and so I want to see that. I want to see that next story, and really take it one step further. And what I love about it is how he bends the laws of reality, and that's why I kind of like That's why I kind of love the ending of the first one. Is the Ancient One explains how like Mordo is rigid. He follows the laws to the letter, and because of that, he needs you. You're more flexible, right? And so he uses the time stone to warp it, and then Mordo always says the bill comes due, right? You can't just do that. But Doctor Strange understands the responsibility of it all. But that's just this race now between Mordo and Strange, right on the third film. You could really do some cool things where like it kind of leads them up to this point of like, how does one live? And whoever survives that, that's the kind of whatever that answer may be. So I have no sympathy for writers or I do not envy the writers that have to figure out that story. But that's a story I want to see. And Clea, of course, Clea at the end of Multiverse of Madness is taking us to wherever that story is going. But like, I am all for it.
Same here. I mean, I said this when we did our Doctor Strange episode. I could watch 9 more of those.
Yeah,
right? I love that pocket of the universe, and I love the stuff that they can do with it.
I really do love Multiverse of Madness. The more I think about the movie, the more I really loved it.
Yeah, it's a great multiversal look at the MCU, and I think if it has a downside, it's that it focuses on that as opposed to on the world of Doctor Strange. So we don't get that Doctor Strange goodness. We just get other kinds of goodness. So I can't wait for a third one to go back to the Doctor Strange world and really open that up and explain what the hell that third eye is all about and all that stuff. But that's a great pick, sir. I love that. Doctor Strange. Wow.
Doctor Strange. Yeah. It was a tough debate. But yeah, my honorable mentions were Black Panther and Iron Man were my big ones.
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was tough because again, it's just Black Panther is kind of like too good to a point where I can't really figure out where it's going. Like I'm too blown away by it to be like, where do we go from here? But talk about a great story. Like that's like in the end what you have with that story right now. Like there's so many moments in Black Panther that just
yeah. If he hadn't passed away,
mm-hmm.
We could have been treated to a really good arc with him. So I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with his friends now to make up for that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's a really good honorable mention. I'm very surprised Iron Man wasn't on your list. I thought, and Loki as well. I thought you were definitely going to have Loki.
No, Loki was a low hanging fruit. I couldn't do it.
You're right. And I mean, I think it's because you came up with this idea after we did a Loki episode. So I was like, oh, he must be thinking of how great the arc was. So, but you're right. It was low hanging. But there you go. We've reached our holiday special end, the end of the year as well. Here on Infinity Rewatch, we have how many weeks until Echo comes out? What are we looking at? Like a month?
A month.
Like a straight month? Because it's like January 18th or something, right?
Yeah.
So pretty much exactly a month from now, we'll be looking at Echo. But as we've mentioned in the past, the recent past, like when we were talking about Loki and Marvels, next year, because of the strikes and everything that's happened, a lot's been pushed back. Next year is going to be a very relatively light year for the MCU.
I'd say sparse.
Sparse, yeah. Right? We're getting maybe one movie, maybe 3 shows, and that's it. But thankfully, it's not going to be a sparse year for Infinity Rewatch. Right? Because Ryan and I had the idea that if we're going to have a sparse year where there's not many movies or shows to watch, new ones anyway, we should go back to our roots a little bit and start rewatching. But we're going to rewatch something a little different that's going to help us prepare for what's coming next. Because I don't know about you, Ryan, but it's been a very, very long time since I have seen anything that started with an X.
Yup. Oh my God, I'm so excited for this. I'm not gonna lie. But like I also want to make sure we're getting some details here. So we're talking about the movies, of course.
Yes.
Are we going to include the animated series at all? Because technically that is MCU now.
Technically it is. I guess we could. I literally just watched that earlier this year, I think, too, because I thought we were getting X-Men 97 this fall. So
yeah,
back like in February, I went through the X-Men cartoon again. So we could do that if you want. Yeah, the movies definitely.
Well, no, we should start with the movies for sure. We should.
Yeah.
Because again, if we start with the movies, 97 we might get an update at some point, and that'll be perfectly timed regardless of wherever we are.
Right. Yeah. So that gives us yes, that is our official big Christmas present announcement to you, the listener, is that next year in 2024, yeah, we are going full. We're branching off into a sub-series, Infinity Rewatch X, right? And we are going to go through in release order all the X-Men movies, which I believe the count right now is we're at 13. So it's going to be the first trilogy, right?
The Singer trilogy.
Yeah. And then you got your X-Men Origins Wolverine, the best one.
Oh God.
Then you've got the Wolverine. And I know this is going out of order now, but whatever, Logan, right? So you've got that little Wolverine trilogy there. So that's 6. Then you've got your 4 we're going back in time, First Class movies. Right, you got your First Class, your Days of Future Past, your Apocalypse, and your Dark Phoenix. Right? And then you've got 2 Deadpools and a New Mutants, which I have not watched yet.
And a partridge and a pear tree.
Yes, sir. That's in fact, they're announcing a new mutant named Partridge, whose power is he can only stand in pear trees. If he ever leaves them, he will die.
So, yes, no, absolutely. So that actually does sum it all up. I would say definitely we'll start with the movies. I would love to do Wolverine and the X-Men, the cartoon, because that is a Feige-produced cartoon that came out after X-Men, the animated series. And I think it was roughly around the end of our high school year that it came out. But I watched, I'm going to say 4 episodes, and it's amazing. Like I was like, well, this isn't the animated series, so I'm not going to watch it kind of attitude when it came out. No, I was horribly wrong. It's so freaking good. But I personally think that if you look at it from a certain angle, Feige could easily run that story for the MCU. But my only issue is that it's not on Disney Plus, and it's impossible to find. There's no current way that I can figure that we'll be able to find it.
There's no current legal way. I'm winking for those of you who are listening at home.
Yeah. But okay. It is amazing. Like if you wanted to do a rewatch on a rare cartoon that like I'd say a handful of people have actually seen, It's so good. It is like, I'll tell you two scenes that make this show stand out. One is Wolverine has to assemble the X-Men, of course, naturally, because he's the most popular character. And he goes to find Cyclops, and Jean has gone missing.
Oh.
And we all remember the animated series when Morph was left behind, how Wolverine took that. Okay. Now let's flip the script and let's turn it so that Jean goes missing and Cyclops blames Wolverine. And so Wolverine goes to visit him and he's like, yo, the professor needs us. Let's do this thing. And he like Cyclops doesn't even respond. He's sitting in a chair in this really desolate apartment and he just blasts him through the wall. And he's like, he's just so bitter and angry. It's so like Cyclops is literally the opposite of what he was in the animated series. It's so good. And then the second one, the second part is it's another Cyclops story, but like he finds out that someone's behind Jean's disappearance, and he literally goes on like a berserk like frenzy to go find who it is, and it's so good.
I love that. That sounds great. Yeah, that's definitely. I was in the same boat as you. I found out that show existed, and I was like, "This is my X-Men," and I didn't bother. And it was like, it was an early 2000s show, I think, and it was at that point where animators started drawing cartoons in a more like stylized look, and I'm like, I don't like this. I like the way they looked in the 90s. So I was all
gotta watch it. It's so different. And like, and the professor's in a coma, but he's talking to Wolverine through telepathy, and he's in a coma because he's fighting for the fate of the present from the future.
Like you do, right?
Like you do. But it's so cool. But anyways, bringing it back into the main topic here of Infinity Rewatch X. So the cool thing is I have never seen Dark Phoenix. I've never watched it. So the last movie of this entire X-Men saga, I've never seen it. I've only seen Age of Apocalypse once. I remember being completely disgusted. But I have never seen Dark Phoenix movie. And so I have no idea how it plays out. I don't know what it is. But I'm excited to talk about it, and I'm excited to finally see it for this show just to talk about it. So, yeah.
And I've never seen New Mutants, so we're gonna
I have never seen that either. So
okay,
yeah,
cool. So we're gonna have a lot of like fresh takes here for ourselves. I love this. Yeah, I'm really excited for this. I'm gonna figure out the exact order of everything. And then I'll send that to you, and we'll talk about that next time. Like probably when we do Echo, we'll lay out what the order is going to be like so people know. But
I think if we're doing it chronologically, I think it's X-Men 1, 2, 3, X-Men Wolverine Origins. Then it's Wolverine. Then it's First Class, Days of Future Past, and then it's Logan. And then it's Dark Phoenix.
You skipped Apocalypse.
Oh, sorry. Then it's Age of Apocalypse. Then it's Logan. Then it's Dark Phoenix. Then it's Deadpool 1 and 2.
And then New Mutants.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have to look at the list to be sure, but yeah. I can't wait to watch the first X-Men though, because despite certain things, it's still one of a kind, and it was the first of its kind. So
there's still so much fun. Even like the two Deadpools, I've seen. I own them both, but I've seen Deadpool just twice, and I've seen the second one just once. Like I can't wait to go back and revisit them again because they're so much fun. So I'm really looking forward to doing this. And I've been holding off because I wanted to watch them this year because I was like, I missed the X-Men, but I've been holding off because I knew this was coming. So I wanted to like pace myself and have.
But in terms of schedule, I think it's. Are we gonna do What If? I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about What If. When's that coming out?
Literally tomorrow. It starts tomorrow.
It starts tomorrow. Oh my god. Okay, we'll figure something out for What If.
Maybe what I'm thinking is we watch the whole thing and then do like a recap of the entire season.
Yeah, I like that.
That way, because like to be fair to our audience here, I'm not totally a fan of What If right now. I'm really reluctant and unmotivated to watch it. But that being said, I am still going to watch it as an MCU fan, and I'll be happy to discuss the season, but not episode by episode. I don't think I can do episode by episode.
That's fair. I agree. We're in a space right now with the MCU where I think we all just want the story to move forward, not sideways, which is exactly what If is. So, yeah, I agree. Let's do that. We'll watch it. When we both seen it, we'll figure out a day to just do a What If Season 2 episode, and that'll be that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. One last question before we go, Ryan. We're about to head into a new year.
Yes.
What is your most anticipated non-Marvel movie of 2024?
I was not expecting that question. Oh, no, I have an answer for that. Oh, hands down, I got a answer for that. Dune Part 2.
Me too!
Go. Yeah. 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 I'm so excited for that. Oh my God. Let's go. Dune Part 2 all the way.
Yeah, that should have been out by now. And yeah, I can't wait for that to happen. And I'm sure there's going to be so many more that I can't think of that I'm just like also chomping at the bit to see. But yeah, Dune's going to be special.
No. You know what? I'll tell you. I already know the next movie that on my list is Ghostbusters Afterlife. Is my next one that I'm also like.
Ooh, the Frozen Empire. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, sorry, Frozen Empire. Yes, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, super excited about that. But Dune Part 2, long live the fighters. Let's go. Best movie. Hands down the best movie I'm ever going to see. I'm so excited to hear that he's already finished the second movie script. So like he's close to finishing it. So after Dune Part 2, he's already working on the sequel to the Dune series, which will be the first time ever that we go past the first book. So I am so stoked.
That's great news. I'm really excited. I think my runner-up is Nosferatu. Robert Eggers is doing Nosferatu. He's making a remake of it.
Ooh.
Oh, that's exciting.
Okay, all right.
Well, sir, that's been our holiday episode.
That's it.
Another holiday episode. Episode 107 for those of you keeping track, because now I am keeping track. All right, buddy. Where can people find you?
So since last we did this whole thing, I haven't announced yet that I haven't officially announced yet that I have left the world of X. I don't use it at all. It was a hard decision, but it was a decision that needed to be made. So I left it. I deleted my account. That's the end of it. So yeah, it's a thing. Oh, and here's my beautiful wife yet again. So who says she will join you in a trip to the Golden Girls?
Yes.
The Golden Girls exhibit. We have a date.
We're going, man. As soon as I saw that, I was like, how soon can I get a plane ticket?
All right. We're going to Palm Springs, and then we can check out Trixie Mattel's motel.
Oh, there you go. Oh, even better. I love it. Oh, hell yeah. Trip with Fantasia. Let's go.
Woo!
I'm invited.
Oh, I'm not invited?
No.
Okay. Just you and Fantasia?
Yeah.
Should I be concerned?
We're not going to hang out with Scarface over here.
Oh, that's not cool.
I love you. Did he tell you about his Nelly Band-Aid that he wore yesterday?
No, were you Nelly for a day?
It was adorable.
So if you haven't noticed, and listeners, when you watch this on the video here, if you haven't noticed, I have a little gash on my cheek, but it wasn't from some cool story. Like I defended off someone attacking me with a knife. No, I literally was doing this block in martial arts where I protect myself like that, but I stick my thumb out and like gash myself as I tried to do this like cool like head block. So.
Oh, did you hurt your eye?
Thankfully, no, because I literally jabbed, head back, but as I jabbed, I just scratched and head back.
Oh,
yeah.
Damn. Oh,
Lesson learned.
Yeah.
If you're a gamer and you're learning martial arts, keep your thumbs close to your hands. Do not stick them out. That is bad. In is good. Out is bad.
And speaking of gamers here, my heart stopped a little bit because when you said you left the world of X, I thought you meant Xbox for a second. And then I had to stop and realize, like, oh yeah, that's what Elon called his stupid new thing. So okay. So you left the world of Twitter.
Yes, Twitter. I've deleted my account on Twitter, so I apologize to Jonathan Davis, who is one of our more vocal Twitter fans. I apologize, but I honestly, I was doing a disservice because I was not on that platform nearly as much as I should have been. I have fond memories of that platform. I've had James Gunn like our content on Twitter, which was a really nice moment. But in the end, I don't use that platform enough. I don't find it interesting anymore. And on top of that, it's becoming a bit overwhelming keeping track of all the different social media platforms. So for now, I'm just sticking to Instagram. That's probably the best way you can find me, unless you're a gamer, and then find me on Discord. But I'll wait for anyone who's interested in finding me on Discord. So, but yeah, find me on Instagram at Ryan J. Whitehead.
You know what, man? You don't need to apologize for that at all. That's like saying, I'm sorry I had to step out of this bathtub full of diarrhea. But like, no, I have had pleasant moments on Twitter as well. I mean, I've had Pablo Hidalgo answer a question for me once. He's had at the Lucasfilm Story Group. I've had Lacey Chabert like 2 of my tweets.
Ooh.
So I mean, there's been moments where I'm like, smile, but it's a no man's land. It is just a terrible place to be. So I don't blame you at all for wanting to get out of it.
Yeah. Even Kingpin left. Vincent D'Onofrio, he left Twitter.
That's right. And he also liked one of my things.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no point if he's not there anymore. You can find me kind of on Twitter, but not really. You can mostly find me on Instagram and here on YouTube, Andrew Fantasia. And you can find my books, We Were Wizards, on Amazon right now. I'm going to hold it up to the camera for those watching, for those listening. It's called We Were Wizards, and there's 2 of them. There's a purple one and a gray one. The purple one's the first one you read. The gray one is the second. But you could kind of almost read them in any order you want in a very George Lucas kind of way. You can machete order it if you want, whatever feels right.
I think we should start leading with those kind of features that, like, you know, I can't remember the first one you dropped earlier, but like, it was like, I think it was like the beauty of, you know, giving a character a whole or something. I can't remember. But you need to lead with those features. You know, hey, you could start the books in any order, and it's kind of like when you showed me the Futurama comic book where you can literally read it from like any panel.
That
you need to lead with this stuff, man.
Well, I think, are you talking about how I said it's got a villain turning the world against the hero?
Yes, that's the one. Yes.
Yeah.
You need to lead with features. Features sell books.
That's right. All right, but the reason I don't lead with that is it's kind of a spoiler. I just did it for us because we're among friends.
Oh, well,
yeah.
No, but the Star Wars one, that's
yes.
a feature.
Yeah, that is a feature. All right, gang. That's been our holiday special here on Infinity Rewatch. Thank you so much for listening and or watching and or smelling, because I'm sure that's a feature on some platform that we haven't discovered yet. Until next time, until What If, until Echo, until whatever comes next, probably What If.
Hope to see you there. See what you did as a pun.
What
if?
Until then, my friends, please have a marvelous holiday.